Next up, a self-taught photographer, Thomas Kakareko has built an envious career doing something that he loves. From founding a social media agency that has since joined DEPT, to being brand ambassador for Sony Alpha and Samsung Galaxy, Thomas spends his time creating content that inspires and influences. Today, he's going to share with us some of his favorite pictures and videos in this age of Instagram. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Thomas Kakareko.
Hello. Guys, let me take you back to 2016. And Samsung had invited me as part of the team to go to the Rio Olympics. And this was really huge. I felt so much pressure. And would I get some good photos? Would I get enough likes? Would the client be happy in the end? But also, what the fuck? That's awesome. Rio, the Olympics, and Copacabana, the beach, the volleyball players. In reality, it was not what I imagined. I imagined walking along the beach with a cool breeze. The reality, shooting for hours under 40-degree heat. And at the end of the day, I imagined checking into a hotel overlooking the Sugarloaf Mountain. The reality, a windowless room of a cruise ship. And when I went to the opening ceremony of the Olympics in Brazil, I imagined being full of joy. The reality, I fell asleep. My name is Thomas, and I'm a photographer, videographer, and brand consultant. I'm a brand ambassador for Samsung Mobile and Sony Alpha, but also work for brands such as BMW, Accor Hotels, and Lufthansa. Today I'm here to tell you a bit about my journey. Part 1, the beginning. I actually never learned photography to shoot or anything similar to it. Instead, I was studying politics and public law and would have probably become a lawyer today, but I never loved it. I just did it for the sake of doing it. And instead, I always wanted to do something creative, but I had no idea what it could be. I was so bad at writing, bad at singing, at painting, and it was going on like that until one day I downloaded this brand new app called Instagram, and totally by accident, I was using it with a friend only for all the wrong reasons. So we've been sending each other like stupid pictures and having a laugh, and just did everything wrong. But one day I remember I got really, really hooked. I discovered some inspiring accounts, and it got me thinking that maybe this is something that you could be doing as well. And from that day on, I took my phone and I started going out every day and practicing, shooting, and trying to find my own style and something I could call like my own approach to this thing called photography. Let me show you some of my earliest work dating back to 2010 or 2011. Nothing that I'm like particularly proud of, but you can already notice a few things that are still present in my work today. You can see the strong monochrome aesthetic and already the human element that I was adding to my pictures from the very beginning. I always wanted to shoot people, don't even know why. I just wanted to have them in my shots, no matter if it's just a small silhouette like you can see here, or a classic street portrait with a subject that is like fully recognizable. And these are super old shots. I have to admit I got kind of nostalgic while putting together this presentation. So maybe let's move on to the next one. Basically, what I was doing back then is taking my phone, walking around for hours, and looking for all the special moments and for any emotion that people were willing to share with me or with each other. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I did it for a really long time. And at some point I got so good at it that I turned almost invisible and people would never notice that I took their shot. And I know that might sound a little bit creepy, but for the first time I felt like a photographer during these days. Yeah, here's another shot, actually one of my most successful shots from that time. But I didn't choose it for that reason. I think I chose it because it perfectly represents what my style was back then. You can see the strong black and white obsession and that reoccurring human element that I was adding to all of my pictures. And I will try not to be too sentimental about that one, but it was a beautiful time for sure. It was no pressure, it was no clients, not even a proper camera. It was just me and my phone. And also Instagram was a totally different place back then. Have a look here. Does anyone even remember Instagram looking like that? It's like end of 2010. And here I have reached the incredible milestone of 100 followers. And look at me, I'm like, wow, I have 100 followers. Big thanks to all of you. Like, I would have won an Oscar or something. And yeah, do people do still these things? I don't know, maybe with 100K followers. Anyway, for me, it really represents what Instagram was standing for back then. It was a cozy place for creatives and where they would log in after a full day in the office and just exchange some pictures, write some nice comments, and in the end find some inspiration. And for me, it's super hard to imagine Instagram being a place like that when you open it up today and have a look at it. And yeah, also I'm wondering why I was so tanned back then. But apparently I was super happy, and that's how I remember the early days of Instagram. Now, part 2, could this be something? By now, we have reached the year 2012, and I was receiving like first offers from brands. I didn't know what to do with it. I was turning most of it down because I had no idea what this is about. I had no idea what they want from me. And one day, I got a request from a global player. It was Puma, and they invited me to Bread and Butter. Maybe some guys, if you know it. It was the biggest fashion trade fair in Berlin back then. And they asked me to visit their stand, take some photos of people, of the products, and of course, put it all on my Instagram and mention their account and like a typical Instagram campaign. And that's what I did. And in exchange, I got some beautiful sneakers. And I was so hyped, I remember. It was like the first time that I got something in exchange for my photography, for posting something to my Instagram. And it was a beautiful day back then. I will never forget it. And have a look at the second shot from that campaign, and you saw my previous shot, so notice the difference in style from the black and white work I was posting back then. And I was super afraid how people would react to it. Maybe they would think that I'm a sellout and I have no respect to my work. That was like the thoughts that were popping up. But everyone was super kind and encouraging, and today I would consider this day to be like the very beginning of my career as a commercial photographer. Now, 1 year later, same location, different client, and for the first time I was working with real models, and even more important, for the first time there was a budget and I got paid for my work. So this was something I was really dreaming for a long time. And now it was finally happening, and again, thoughts started popping up in my head, like maybe this is something that you could be doing in the future. And when you look at that, again, so different from what I would usually shoot. But at this point, it didn't really matter to me anymore, because I was able to work as a photographer. And I still remember how much I learned on that day about how a shooting actually works and how to approach models, how to make the best use of available light, and all the things that proved to be incredibly important for all that was coming next. Yet still, I was shooting only with my phone, and it would take me another 3 years until I would pick up a proper camera and reach the next level. Going pro. Now we are moving on to 2015. I would say the most important year of my career for so many reasons. I'd like to mention only a few. First, I became brand ambassador for Samsung Mobile Germany, which was a huge honor for me back then. For the first time, a brand actually believed in me and wanted to work with me on a long-term basis instead on a campaign-only basis. And I remember how super proud I felt to be part of that exclusive group. And I started to push myself even harder. Like, I really, really wanted to become a pro photographer now. And at that time, I finally had enough confidence as well to speak up about it. And I wanted everybody to know. And then another, even more important thing finally happened. So I picked up a proper camera. It was a mirrorless with a 24-70 zoom lens. That would be my only lens for the next 2 years. And this picture that you can see here was taken on one of the first walks with my new camera. And some of you might already have noticed like the huge difference in quality. And to me, it felt like a whole new world opening up, and so much more clarity, so much more detail. And then there was depth of field finally. And I was totally overwhelmed by all the possibilities. It was also the time when I discovered Lightroom and Photoshop and totally got lost in it as well. It took me a year to figure it out and countless sleepless nights again. But I desperately wanted to learn it, and these tools finally gave me control, and they enabled me to enhance certain moods and feelings or make them totally disappear, depending on the mood that I wanted to reach. Yeah, now let me show you some of my recent work. Maybe let's start with something that was really special to me. Me and my management, we've been trying to position myself as an automotive photographer for many years. With very medium success, and I was working like for brands like Alfa Romeo and Volkswagen, which was super nice, but it was still not the big thing that I was hoping for. So at some point, I got that offer from Lamborghini, and they asked me to come to Italy and shoot their brand new Urus in Matera. And that's what I did, and it was like a dream come true for me. And the picture that you can see here was not only used across my channels, but also used on Lamborghini's channels. And I mean, you can imagine that this is like something I will be proud of forever. And since that campaign, like all of my biggest projects that I worked on have been automotive. So that was like really a game changer for me. But there's one client that has been around for more than 5 years now. And it's Samsung Mobile, of course. Here you can see a shot from a recent campaign showcasing the Galaxy S10. It's a plain product shot, super commercial, and still super challenging for me, especially when I have to post it on my Instagram. I have the feeling that people never seem to appreciate a good device shot. Don't know why. Still, it's part of the game, and the client obviously loves these. And there's like 1 million similar shots that I took in this style in the last few years. So every now and then, I love working with a brand that's not automotive or consumer electronic, like the next one. Here I have worked for the German TV channel Deutsche Welle, and I was covering Berlin Fashion Week for them and for their freshly launched Instagram channel. It was all about fashion, art, design, things that usually don't really take place on my feed. And I really enjoyed breaking out of my style, and I'm trying to focus on this kind of work for the near future. And again, here's something that was really fun to work on. In this case, Samsung TV asked me to take their TV, obviously, and mix it up with my style in whatever way I wanted. And actually, these are the briefings that I enjoy the most, where the client like trusts you and gives you control and just lets you create. To be honest, it doesn't really happen that often, but I still have hope. And of course, I had to take the TV up on my favorite rooftop in Berlin to create that shot. And now let's quickly talk about video. I mean, as a photographer, I was really struggling with it. after realizing how important video has become for my clients. And I was still so far away from understanding photography, so how could I even start with video now? Yet it was impossible to avoid for the reasons that I already mentioned, and everyone was talking about video. And some of my photographer friends even developed mad skills over time, and I felt like I need to catch up, and I got in touch with various videographers and started to learn. And here's something we created with my friend Danny for Sony. How to play that, actually. Can someone help me? It was working yesterday. You have to see that video. No sound though. Oh. How can I add sound? You have to do it. Can't do it here.
The sound is not connected.
Oh, what a shame. I hope you guys still enjoy it. Sorry? Yeah, I mean, there will be another video, so let's do it, yeah.
I think you have to, your sound is now coming from your HMI, and you have to...
How to do that? I mean, it's just some music. We can do it without sound, I guess. But yeah, it perfectly shows like a full day of me when I go shooting in Berlin. Like from early morning to the end, we try to accompany me on a regular day at work. So that was basically it. Now let's talk about some challenges. That was actually the longest part of my presentation, but I had to cut it for obvious time reasons. But first, let me show you another video, again without sound. But this was taken during a trip I did with Samsung last summer. It was a 3-month trip around Eastern Europe. And it was a really special trip to me. It was the biggest campaign I ever worked on so far, the longest time away from home. And usually on trips like that, influencers are getting spoiled so they can focus on creating and deliver the best content that they can. But not here. I had to take care of everything on my own, like flights, hotels, but most importantly, getting in touch with the locals and trying to find the best locations of a given city. Because at the end of every week, the client was waiting for a gallery of great shots that I had to deliver. And I had to deal with difficult physical conditions as well. Have a look at the following picture. It's Skadar Lake in Montenegro. It was a beautiful, moody morning with fog and perfect shooting conditions. And I was standing on that boat and we are getting some of the best shots I ever took. And then suddenly that happened. And we got into a heavy rainstorm from one second to another. And people got super panicked, cameras got wet. But I was standing there and still had like the best time of my life. And I probably took some of the best shots of my life on that day. In general, this trip was like full of unexpected events and nothing really worked out. But in the end, I had some of the craziest shots that I ever took and the craziest content. The client was super happy. And I keep sharing stuff from this journey until today. But now, for another personal challenge, my ongoing fight against my fear of heights and flying, perfectly depicted in this picture. Probably the most difficult challenge I had to cope with throughout my whole career. It was stopping me from doing great stuff that I wanted to do, like flying in a helicopter over the Grand Canyon, or just climbing up a roof to enjoy the view of a city from above. And I really, really wanted to do these things. So again, I had to push myself to the limits. And I started climbing up on the highest rooftops without ever looking down. And I started flying in helicopters as often as I could. And in the end, I was hanging out of a helicopter in Vegas with open doors, getting the money shots, like that one, of course. And I will never, never forget the feeling of, like, the worst fear you could possibly think of, mixed with a feeling of nothing could ever stop me. It's way too hard to describe it, so maybe have a look at that picture instead. It's a view from a helicopter again, the Grand Canyon from above, something that deeply fascinated me back then and even does until today. And I think that the most important lesson that I learned throughout this whole journey is not to give up when I'm afraid of something, but to push myself even more to overcome it. I keep experimenting. Now for the next steps, I keep experimenting. And at the beginning of this summer, I made a video. For that one, we need sound. And this video showed my first experimentation with portraiture after a long time. I was experimenting with colors, but always with an emphasis on light. Can we get the sound somehow working, please? No. Ah, it is. Nice.
You're speaking a language I don't understand. I don't know that look in your eyes. I need you to give me a sign. I'm reaching my hand. Let's go to a place we won't leave no trace. We're heading to heaven and there's no coming back.
I'm ready to die with you, baby. I'm ready to leave. I know that I put you through hell, but you came and got me out of my shell when I needed a friend.
Yep, please excuse the Instagram format. I feel very privileged to be standing here in front of you guys. And it seems like such a long time ago when I was taking photos with my phone and I uploaded them to a brand new, unheard of app. And my career was possible because of timing, as it coincided exactly with the evolution of Instagram. But it wasn't like I started out with a plan. Creativity always for me is the result of experimentation. So if there's one thing that you can take from my story today, and it doesn't matter if you're a pro or someone just starting out, it's the value of giving it a go and seeing what happens.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm pretty sure that Deb's very glad that you chose photography over politics
I hope
and
so,
law,
yeah.
and you are insanely talented, so thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I was just wondering if you had any advice for some budding photographers in the room.
I mean, I always say, don't think too much about it, just go out and shoot. I mean, that's what I did as well. I had like no teacher and nothing similar. I just took my phone and spent like 5-6 hours every day on the street. And that's how I picked it up, that's how I learned it. And I think it works for everyone.
Thank you. So guys, if you don't follow him on Instagram already, Thomas_K, join the 700,000 or so people who do. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.